With the NFL draft coming and going, it has left a lot of questions on how the new Bears are going to fit into the roster. We're going to talk about the projected depth chart, what players have won and lost because of the players that the Bears did draft. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. If you want to follow me, you can do so right off the top at CEO Haize, that's CEO Haize. If you want to follow the show, you can do so at Chi Bears Central. But let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So following the NFL draft, it has cleared up some position battles, right? Some projected starters for the Chicago Bears. I'm going to talk about, how it's made some things a little bit more murky, how there are going to be some competitions at some key spots for the Chicago Bears. But we're going to talk about winners and losers from the NFL draft when it comes to the Chicago Bears and their new one. First up, it's Justin Fields all the way. When you look at adding in the weapons and protection for Justin Fields and what the Bears did with moving the first overall pick, which brought in DJ Moore and brought in Darnell Wright, it has definitely now pushed the Chicago Bears to a point of they've given more weapons to Justin Fields. And also when you look at Roschon Johnson and what he could be for this team, and Scott as well, like what they found on day 3, the Bears went out and they got weapons done. They also improved the trenches drastically over this free agency, and it has added a lot for Justin Fields and Luke Getsy in that sense. Let's be clear. Both of them, now hopefully Luke Getsy can absolutely start being a little bit better, understanding a little bit more what he needs to do, and opening up that playbook a little bit more for the Chicago Bears roster and get a little bit more creative that we saw in flashes last season. Other winners include, I would say, Dominique Robinson in all this, right? The Bears did not go out and get an edge as many of us thought, and I think that may mean that he is going to be not only keep his place in the rotation, but he's going to have a chance to show how he has developed. He's already tweeted and talked about the fact that he's not going to be the same player, that he's worked on some things, but when you also look at bringing in players like DeMarcus Walker, bringing in what we've brought in on that defensive line, also hopefully he's going to help him be a little bit better. Yes, don't get me wrong. There are absolutely issues with the way Dominique Robinson failed to perform once he got his chance to start. But hopefully with improvements on that defensive line overall, we're bringing in players like Javon Dexter and things like that ultimately is going to help the Chicago help maybe Dominique Robinson even show a little bit more of the little bit that he flashed in that when he was a rotation piece for the Chicago Bears coming off that bench. So I'll look at that as saying that he definitely could end up being a winner for sure in this, if him and Travis Gibson to a degree as well, if he continues to just develop and if he works on his game this offseason, and he already has, a kind of inside edge on one of the edge positions if he performs in training camp. But at that same time, one of the players that I think absolutely lost or is going to lose some things, is going to be a bigger eye on them when you look at now that defensive line overall, is really Justin Jones. Justin Jones, who was one of our best defensive linemen last season, right? He now comes in and he's going to have way more competition at that position, right? And the fact that we drafted 3 defensive tackles in the draft, 3 of them, right? And what that already means for this team, it's going to get a little interesting, right? We got Andrew Billings there, Zach Pickens, Javon Dexter. It's some competition coming behind Justin Jones, and he needs to hopefully, and I say a loser in the sense that it's not as clear if he's going to hold on to that starting position, but I do think it's going to ultimately, we'll see what it's going to be for him, but I do definitely think you need to, look out for that as well. Another loser in this, absolutely Kendall goddamn Vildor. And I can't be happier to be saying this because, listen, Kendall Vildor sucks. That just is what it is. Vildor sucks. And so, bringing in, better cornerbacks at that position, even Stevenson, who projects to maybe even be a starter, right? In that, for the Chicago Bears on day 1, it pushes Kendall Vildor down, and I would not be surprised if he may end up being a cap casualty. And, if that is the case, bye-bye, see you later. But ultimately as well, who wins? Us. The Bears fans win because we are going to have an improved product, and hopefully that translates to wins for the Chicago Bears overall. But, we'll see. We'll see. And ultimately as well, one of the people who could end up being a loser in this case is D'Onta Foreman, right? When you look at what D'Onta Foreman, I know it's my brain phonetically tries to, but D'Onta Foreman and what he come to the Chicago Bears. He talked about competing for a starting position. And now when you look at what they got in Johnson and the potential around Johnson and the fact that there is so much promise around him and saying, hey, listen, it is what it is. Ryan Poles already saying that he was shocked that Johnson was even there in the 5th round and they jumped to get him. Poles saying this, I think he increases the competition in our running back room. But the cool thing about it is that if you watch Texas tape, he does a lot. He pass protects really well. That stands out. He's done some quarterback stuff. He came out of high school as a quarterback. This is going to allow the offensive staff to maybe do some really cool things with him and keep the defense on its toes. Listen, Johnson is not he's been a backup to a running back before, right? In Bijan Robinson. So he comes in, he's probably going to be, equipped to be a backup for Khalil Herbert, but what the skill set he brings in pass protection, also be able to use in the passing game as a receiver, and then if they do want to get a little bit creative, maybe even using him as a passer to get creative in that game, Johnson could be one of those specialty players that we talked about it before on the show, getting a couple of positionless players, right? Some of the more dynamic offenses have positionless players, and while Johnson doesn't shape up to be a truly positionless player, he does offer a lot of ways that you can use him and wrinkles in that offense and get a little bit creative there. So I'm really excited, but I do think that it may push Dante Foreman maybe out of the rotation at some point. When you look at it, they have more long-term invested in Johnson and his development there. And if he can come in and be that pass protection on top of and add even more protection for Justin Fields, as well as a weapon in that passing game, we can see how he grows as a runner. It can get very creative for the Chicago Bears to use Johnson. And I would not be surprised at all by the end of the season, we're talking about Johnson taking more snaps than Dante Foreman. And so we'll see what that ends up shaking up to. But I really do like the way that they brought in competition at certain positions. And that has brought us to what right now is the projected starting line, was the projected depth chart for the Chicago Bears going into the season. One, we have our quarterback one. That's not a question there. It's going to be Justin Fields. When you look at the running back position, of course, I think going into the season is going to be Khalil Herbert as the running back one, Dante Foreman as the 2, with Roschon Johnson being the 3rd string there. But do not be surprised if that flip-flops and changes, especially if Johnson shows up the way that we think he can. Wide receivers, starting 3 wide receivers are going to be DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool. We know that that's coming with Equinami and St. Brown. Tyler Scott probably even being above Velus Jones in that lineup. Dante Pettis may even be above him in that lineup as well. But then, we still got Velus Jones, and if he does end up showing something. So, hey, I like our wide receiver room overall. Tight end, clearly Cole Kmet, with Robert Tonyan being the 2nd string tight end there for us. And then you get to the offensive line. We have Braxton Jones at left tackle, Tevin Jenkins at left guard, Cody Whitehair is projected to be the starting center, Nate Davis as the right guard, and Darnell Wright as the starting right tackle, with Lucas Patrick being able to fill in either the guard or the center position as well. Larry Bourne probably going to get some of those snaps at right tackle, and J. Tyree Carter is going to be somewhere in there as well, and we'll see how Doug Kramer and Alex Leatherwood factor into that rotation overall. But I like what we have on the offensive line. Is it what some people would have hoped our offensive line would have been coming out of this draft? No. But I think we have a lot of talent, and we're going to protect Justin Fields a lot better than what we did last season. Getting into the defensive line, we have probably first starting edge. DeMarcus Walker is going to be that starting edge for us, with Justin Jones and Andrew Billings as the starting defensive tackles. But I would not be surprised if either Jervon Dexter or Zach Pickens ends up taking one of those spots. And then Trevis Gibson's probably at the other starting defensive end position. That's unless, we'll see what they do with Noah if they do move him to a different position. But that shapes up to be our starting rotation there. And then at the linebacker, weak side linebackers, TJ Edwards, middle linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, and then we have the strong side linebackers, Jack Sanborn, with Noah Sewell being the backup middle linebacker right now, Dylan Cole as the backup strong side. And so we'll see what that ends up shaping up. But I like that that linebacker rotation as well for the Chicago Bears. Cornerback, this is where things get interesting. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, some formation of those 3 are going to, of course, be the players that play the most snaps at cornerback for us. But I think Josh Blackwell being in there as well, and Jalen Jones being somewhere in there as well also. But Kendall Vildor, I expect him to be on his way out. That's kind of my thought process there. Safeties, same as last year. Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, period. We know what that's going to be. Elijah Hicks going to be the backup there as well. And that's really what it shapes up to be for the Chicago Bears and their rotations. And I, for one, can't wait to see what this team looks like on the actual field. I think it's going to be fun. Kind of the next dates and next things up for the Chicago Bears. Rookie minicamp starts this Fridays, the 5th through the 7th. And then we have our full schedule. We kind of already know our opponents, who's going to be home, who's going to be away. But we'll have those exact dates released sometime before the end of May. I think the schedule releases May 13th, I think is where it's scheduled to be. And then we have our OTA offseason workouts. That's May through June. And then we have the mandatory minicamp June 13th through 15th. And then training camp starts late July. We are right at the precipice. We are moving forward to getting closer to the start of the NFL season. And I, for one, think this is going to be one of the more exciting NFL seasons for Chicago Bears fans. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. That is it for today's daily episode of Chicago Bears Central. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearscentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.